All right, I think we'll get started. Looks like we definitely have a quorum, 5 of the 7. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September 14th virtual meeting of the Finance Committee. This evening, just a reminder, the meeting is being recorded. And the agenda this evening will be, we're going to introduce a few new members. Not necessarily new faces, but new members. And we'll have a finance director update with Alicia. And we'll have a discussion of, and maybe voting on some warrant articles this evening for the special town meeting, depending on if their articles are ready for discussion. But we will have another meeting before we absolutely have to vote on them. So we can hold anything. If we have more questions, we can always hold. Then we'll discuss, I do want to get into the department liaison opportunities we have. There are definitely a few of the positions that we need to fill out. And then some public input and member input, and then we will adjourn. I did leave off minutes because I'm a knucklehead. So we'll catch those later in the month. But without further ado, I would like to introduce our 2 new appointees. Fantastic. We have Mr. Steve Venuti, that is a familiar face in town from, you are appointed, I believe, from the Treasurer's Department. Is that correct?
I'm appointed from the Assessor's Department.
Assessors, that's right. Fantastic. Welcome aboard. Pleasure to have you. We've worked with you in the past. So you're definitely going to bring a lot of historical knowledge as well as some great ideas to the board. So welcome aboard, Steve. Great to have you. And next, Alvin Rasmus. So you're on, correct? Right in front of me. There you go. How are you?
Good.
So you are our second appointee from the school committee. Is that correct?
Yes.
Good. I got that one right. So welcome. You are a new face to me. I recognize the name, but welcome aboard. You're definitely appointed by one of, obviously, half the town budget goes to school. So very important that we have a few members appointed from that board. So welcome, and I look forward to working with you.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to Alicia. How are you this evening? We'll get into your updates.
Good. How are you, everyone?
Good.
I'm going to share my screen and do a PowerPoint presentation tonight.
Great.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Very pretty.
I'll just make sure I can get it to work on my 2 screens at home. Hold on one sec. So tonight we're going to review warrant articles related to finance for special town meeting and review and approve the Association of Town Finance Committee dues. And I pasted below the special town meeting articles, even though we're going to primarily focus on the financial articles this evening.
At any time along the way, please ask questions. I know a lot of this is going to be new to a few of you. This is our yearly or biannual, I should say. For our special town meeting, we always vote on the finance related articles. We can always hold on these. If you have further questions, please ask, and we can dig a little bit deeper. Thank you.
So for the finance articles for review at special town meeting is Article 1, bills of prior year. Article 2, amending the fiscal year 22 budget. Article 3, transferring to debt exclusion stabilization fund. Article 4, appropriation of ban excess premium. Article 5, the fiscal year 22 Community Preservation Committee amending their match. They just underestimated how much they were going to actually get. And appropriation to fund a project. Article 9, the Littleton sewer system expansion, Littleton common area construction funding. Article 11, authorization to sell U14-11 Shaker Lane, and Article 15, fund collective bargaining agreements.
Now, Alicia, how many articles do you know are actually in the warrant for the special?
I believe it's 16 articles.
Not too bad.
Be 15. I think we took one out.
We took one out?
Yeah.
Okay, 15 articles.
And a welcome, Town Administrator Anthony and Salvi. I should have welcomed you earlier. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure to be with you all.
Article 1 on bill of prior years. We spoke about this last meeting. There's a couple more, which was Carousel Industries of North America that got added for $2,084.79 for the IT department to be charged. And WB Mason amount of $33.55 for the building department to be charged to the account number specified. These will all be using current year funds to pay prior year bills, but we've implemented now, instead of a $2,500 limit, at $500, there has to be a purchase order in place to stop, the number of prior year bills needing approval during town meeting. Article 2 is the amending of the fiscal year 22 operating budget. Most of the increases, as you can see, is that for the town accountant, my office for my hire, human resources, had a new human resource director hire, Elder and Human Services, we had Liz rehired, and the transfer station costs due to not updating correctly after finalizing the CBAs needed to be adjusted. So the total that we are increasing the operating budget to raise and appropriate is $69,969. Is there any questions on this?
Let's just keep that up a minute. So I can,
Oh, and also in my town accountant expenses is for CLA, who were doing interim services until I came on board. So we had to increase that too.
I see. Okay.
Where's the money coming from, Alicia?
Raise and appropriate.
Assuming the salary and wages are, we're also funding OPEB as well.
You're talking about an OPEB funding? That's separate from this. This is just an amendment to the original fiscal year 22 budget, increasing their salaries and ordinary expenses.
So the salaries are going up. Are we also looking to make the adjustment in OPEB to cover that?
No,
So, Greg, do you mean the pension funding?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
We've always funded that. Whenever salaries go up, we fund that too, unless something's changed in the last couple months.
Yeah, we're still aggressively funding the pension plan with premium payments on that. So yeah, nothing's changed on that, but yeah, I can put together kind of our funding schedule that we have for that.
Okay, so that probably wouldn't show on that until our next fiscal year. Is that correct? Or is
We
that-
fund above, so don't we fund above the required contribution? So we wouldn't need to add any more because we're already funding above what we need to fund anyways, Greg.
Right, but it looks like these are going up, so we need to make sure that we have enough in there to cover that.
We do, because
Okay.
as Steve can attest to it.
So-
We've always funded extra, right, Sean?
Yeah. So not to jump in here, but last year we did, FY21, we did our base pension funding and then an additional $555,000. So any marginal increases in
We don't
salaries would be definitely absorbed by that premium
Right.
payment.
We don't need to adjust anymore. We don't need to put any more into that.
All right, just making sure we got it covered. Good job.
Question. Any other questions on this slide? Good.
sorry, go back.
Okay, we're good.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Article 3, debt exclusion stabilization fund. We're putting 150,000 from free cash into the debt exclusion stabilization fund to offset exclusion costs for the taxpayers. Any
Yeah,
questions?
Standard article that we do. Yeah.
I'm kind of going back a slide, but that's okay. I was just thinking about, I know we hired on a new HR director. I'm assuming, I believe we were going to hire another HR individual sooner than later. Is that part of this or not? Doesn't appear to be. So is that something that we're going to look at funding second half of the year?
Well, you know what, Gary, we wouldn't have to make any adjustments on that because we do have the salary savings from that position too. So even if the position comes in higher than what was budgeted, we still can absorb that within the budget.
All right, thank you. Sorry, I went back. I was just thinking.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Article 4 is appropriation of bond and ban excess premium. So there's a small amount of excess premium that is being distributed pro rata by project. Once this is done, that receipts for appropriation account that has premium in it will be empty, correct, Sean? At
Yep.
that point, it'll be at zero.
So we had close to 390 in excess premium for both ban issuances that we did this year. So those excess premiums are being applied proportionally to the capital projects within each of those issuances.
A lot of writing for $777.
I know. This probably took, $500 of work to come up with. Unfortunately, sorry guys.
Oh, detail is just what it needs to be, but we don't see that much for 20 million sometimes. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I tried to make it shorter. I couldn't.
How are the projects going, Sean?
Which one?
Pick one.
So for the library one's on track. So that's good. We're fully funded. We'll roll the ban in November with the offset of the state grant and gift accounts. Some of the water infrastructure ones, save for the Cedar Hill and the land acquisition, have been kind of running over what we've borrowed. So I'm meeting with the Light and Water Department tomorrow to get an update on that, because we do have those bans due for the Whitcomb Ave and PFAS projects coming in November. We also have Clean Water Trust funding that we just approved. So it's going to be figuring out what we need to do with the current issuances and see how much we can put on to the Clean Water Trust. So more to come on that, and hopefully stay on budget and on schedule. So
Thank you.
Yep.
Article 5 is for the Community Preservation Committee. We're putting some more money into the open space reserves, historic, housing, recreation, and admin based on the 32.3% match. So it's much higher than it's actually been in years. So for fiscal year 21, 32.3% is being matched by the trust. And further, they voted the other meeting, I believe it was last week, for $13,500 to fund the Cloverdale and Town Forest Boardwalk project. And they're going to fund that by taking it from general reserve and transferring that into the recreation reserve.
I want you all to take a hard look at this slide, because we do need a representative on this committee. So we always have a Fincom representative on the CPC committee. It used to be Betsy. So if one of you want to step up and join this committee, it would be great. It's actually a great board that does a lot of work for the town, obviously, as you all know. It's important to have our vote in it for sure.
Okay. Article 9 is on the Littleton sewer system expansion and Littleton Common Area construction funding. This one is to borrow $39,950,000 or some other amount to pay for costs for the construction of the Littleton sewer system expansion. We also put a suggested motion below that has been approved by bond counsel that Sean did. Thank you, Sean.
So do we know if it's 40 million that we're looking for here, or is it going to be something else? Do you have any insight on that, Sean?
So I'll speak to that. So there's, Greg, that's a really conservative number that Nick is working with right now. They're still going through some of the design phase. We expect that number to be lower. So, but right now that's the conservative, very, very conservative number that to stay safe on that.
So is that conservative number based on the number that we were talking about before and how that would impact the taxpayer? Is that based off this 39,950, or is it based off of something else? Do you know, Anthony?
So good question, because I think in the past when we were talking about sewer, it wasn't very clear, and Steve can probably attest to this, right? As you all can attest to, especially that being around town. So what's changed now from then? Back then we were always looking to partner, I'll use the word partner, with either the Point or the IBM. Then that was a REIT in Texas, because certainly we wanted that another big user and not be the only user in this system. So with the redevelopment of 550 King Street and the developer that's looking and finalizing the purchase of that property, he wants in on that project, and he wants in on sewer. So he's had a meeting with the water and sewer department and talked about the flows necessary, or the flows that he would be looking for. Now that was roughly 125,000 gallons per day. What's the significance of that? I think Steve will smile probably at this, is all of a sudden now we're not the only user of this system now, right? Now we have this entity that's going to be roughly 3/4 of the consumption of, not going to say consumption, of the flows of the sewer system. So now when you're looking at the funding for this, so now the town is in a situation where if we're only roughly 25%, and that's only talking about 2 entities right now, right? So it's IBM and us. Forget about everybody else, just say. So that now is say 75-25. So that's a town's share of that. Let's call it 40 million for the sake of argument, is now down to $10 million. Certainly that's much clearer for us as far as what our obligation is going to be to this system. I'll be talking to the select board about maybe utilizing even some of the ARPA money to pay down on that $10 million, because the more we can get down and that we need to pay for, then that's going to lower our net for the next 30 years, which is what is expected to borrow on this with that SRF loan that the water department's already water and sewer's already or is working on or has already gotten it. So it's pretty significant now that, and this is why really this is a good time for this article to come up, because if we get that zoning change that's necessary for the developer at 550 King Street, then now we have a plan to really make this a reality.
Yeah, hey, that's some great news, Anthony. I mean, I thought we were going to be bearing this as the taxpayers, the bulk of this or the brunt of it. And it doesn't sound like that's the case now. So that's probably the best news I've heard all night.
Yeah, it really is, Greg. And that's the exciting thing about, it's exciting that a developer wants to come in and make this a mixed-use project. Now, what ultimately gets allowed is up to the planning board, but certainly what he's talking about in residential and on the front on King Street, tying into the form-based code, and then does maybe just one of those buildings stay, and one of them gets sprayed? I guess that depends on the demand, and an office is not really in high demand, right? So I wouldn't expect to see two, but that's just a total guess on my part. But it's really, to me, it makes me breathe a little bit easier knowing that we're not the only user in $40 million system.
Yeah, and that was the original pitch, right? I mean, it was supposed to be self-funded, and if it gets back to that point or really close to it, much more palatable for the taxpayers to pony up the rest or what we got to do there. So
right, and those are just two of the entities that we're going to be users. We also have in another article that I don't know if Alicia has up here is the rezoning of 25 Robinson Road. Well, by rezoning that parcel, that really entails that 4 acres, that's really that point between Robinson Road and what's that, Great Road? Yeah. So that's going to allow that to be redeveloped with that property. And I showed the select board some schematics that they want to do. So, they would be a user. And, I think when you start to see the 550 King Street be redeveloped and then the Northern Banks property, it's going to spur more growth. The more people that get in, hopefully our costs just, we become an even lower user of the system.
sounds good to me.
Gary or Anthony, have we seen updated financials on this?
So we have not yet. They're still working through the design. That's why we're going with the conservative numbers, Steve. I know in speaking with Nick, they are reaching out to a financial expert in utilities. So he's still working on that. So hopefully that picture becomes clearer on the financials of the project.
They're going to have that done before town meeting?
Nick's trying, there's a ton going on, so I don't know. We can circle back with Nick. I think that we have a little side group meeting this week that, that certainly can be brought up by, Fincom's representative to that little working group that
Jerry and I were invited to that meeting.
Yeah.
Thursday,
So one of the things that we better be ready for at town meeting is to answer what the tax impact to the townspeople is going to be.
That's the bottom line. That's what people want to see. And that, unfortunately, that number is going to make a lot of people choke because it's going to be based on the number we're looking at here as opposed to what ifs. So hopefully the presentation that's put together by Light and Water shows, A, B, and C. This is worst case scenario. If everything falls apart, this is what we're going to have to eat. And then to see where those two parcels get built up like it's expected, and then what it looks like.
and hopefully by talking about this $40 million, this is really, again, this is that worst case scenario. When you have a developer in that wants to do a mixed use development, certainly a project like that is going to attract some attention from the state. And that's gonna, we were the recipients of a $1.5 million MassWorks grant some 4 years ago. And that was really based on, concept, what we were thought that we're going to generate from the project going forward. We have now a clearer picture. Once that they go through the process and we know that the number of housing units and retail units and maybe manufacturing, research and development, biotech, etc., that's going to attract more of an opportunity for the MassWorks grant. And the developer feels confident that, we can get some additional MassWorks grant money, which would bring that project cost down. Also, we're going to go after pretty heavy too with the state, that ARPA money. You hear about the $5 billion that the state has that they want to do with infrastructure. Certainly, our sewer system is a great infrastructure project, right? And it really checks a lot of other boxes that the governor wants to do. So, we're going to really lobby hard for additional state funding. And, I'm hoping that we can be successful.
I think when the time comes for town meeting, and to talk about the tax impact, I would rather see the numbers coming out of the treasurer's office and the finance department than to come out of the light and water department.
Yeah, I think that can be certainly a discussion that Gary and Jerry can raise some of those, some of the questions that are being brought up tonight to that meeting this week. So we can have that discussion with them, and Lisa and Sean, I'll have them join me at that meeting as well. So the key is this is a good opportunity, this in 550 King Street, and it's really selling to make sure that we have the story and it's a clear picture for people. They know what to expect.
But you really should still show, here's the worst case if 550 doesn't happen. Here's the worst case if 550 is 50% of what this guy is telling us he's going to do right now. Those types of things. So people can be prepared, because it's going to be a big nut.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
And I can tell this number was put together by Light and Water, because if that was put together by someone in finance, it would say 40 million. It wouldn't say 39,999, like a new car, right? So that's $40 million.
That's to take the sticker shock out of it, right?
Yeah, really, Nick's team's doing a really great job in trying to wrap this all up, so.
And I joke, but you're right. And I know that a lot of work with the select board is going.
And the water commissioners, they've been, very supportive and fantastic. And so it's been a good team. Approach so far, and it's something that certainly I think that's a benefit to all of us working together on something like this.
Sure, but all the talk, we could talk about the master plan, how this is a huge part of it, in the form-based code, and how it's going to really change the look of Littleton and make it a very walkable space. At the end of the day, if we want the taxpayers to buy off on this, we've got to pitch it in full and really show that, like Steve had mentioned, let's see what it's going to look like, worst case scenario and best case scenario, and be honest with everybody. And I think it's because that's what's going to be expected, and that could also stop, cut down the line of people that are going to come up when this article pops up there. You're going to have quite a few questions. So I'm just thinking, getting in front of it. We have over a month to get in front of this, answer a lot of questions, and really put this together on what it could look like and how it's going to benefit the town regardless, because at the end of the day, that's what people are going to have to vote on. Are we willing to pay that amount, knowing that hopefully these developers come through and do what they said they're going to do for the town? So
that's great points, Gary. And certainly I think that if something was to fall through with 550 King Street, then we'd probably be having a different discussion and not moving forward with $40 million, but maybe, at the very least right now, and speaking with Nick, and we have to replace our system, right? So replacing our system, and we being the only user of our municipal system, or at least our treatment plant, is $12 million. So, at the very least, we have to do that. And at that point, we're absorbing all that cost of $12 million if we stayed on our own. Here's an opportunity right now, is it's $40 million, of which we, based on some flows right now, we're only 25%. That's $10 million. It's right now, just on that, it looks like that's a win for us, right? Because instead of 12 million, if all this works through, it's 10 million. So Certainly it is a ton of work to do between now and town meeting. But right now on the high level view, it's looking very promising. But certainly there's work to do and to make people understand how this is going to work. And I'm sure Nick and his team will put that together and certainly work with us on the finance part to make sure that we know our expectations and financial expectations for the town.
Yeah. And what we're looking, is this a 30-year, Alicia or Sean, what this goes on?
Yeah, so I think the maximum term you can do for sewer projects 30 years. So because the sewer affects our operating budget through the wastewater line item, we'd probably look to kick this out over 30. But I mean, we'd also have to take a look at a couple of models and see how much of the levy would be taken up.
Yeah.
In terms of debt service, and then our debt service to operating budget ratios.
Do we have any idea, like, of the timetable? Do you think that this purchase will go through before town meeting with this developer? You said there's a purchase in the works.
Yeah, Jerry, in the last conversation I had with him is they're just, doing the final purchase documents and all the necessary stuff that has to be done. I'll certainly, I'm in touch with the owner of the company at least weekly. So I always like to know, are you sure we're in? If something was to fall through, then we might be talking something totally different before town meeting. But yeah, so it's as soon as I know for sure, I'll let everybody know. But it's certainly, from speaking with him last week, it seemed to be a go.
We could know for sure before town meeting is.
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Question for Sean. Sean, is this still looking like, either way we go, is this still looking like an override that's going to be needed, or are we going to be doing this inside the levy?
So it really depends on the dollar amount that would be, pending approval, that would have to go forward. I know that there's definitely a tipping point within the budget where we'd be, so debt heavy that we, couldn't, fund our operations properly. I mean, we run a few models where we like to keep capital expenditures and debt service between 5 and 10% combined, 10 being at the really high end of that. So it's really one of those things we'd have to model out and see where we're standing. Ideally, we'd like to do this within the levy, especially if it's at that $10 million over 30 years, because I know anecdotally with how rates are right now, that's definitely affordable with how we've managed debt over the years and our operating budget. But obviously with, some big capital projects coming on, like the senior center and bonding the library, we have to take into account with that. So one of the things that Anthony and Alicia have kind of gotten going is revamping the 10-year capital plan. So we've reached out to departments to identify our replacement costs, and then B, prioritize and come up with funding options that make sense, so we can identify our replacement costs and then find out our debt profile in out years and see what we can afford on just, what's new things, and then take care of the current capital we have. So it's a fine balancing act, but we're really going to have to cost that out and see where we're going to land on that. But I think in short, like if it's around 10, we should be in a good spot there and not have to do an override.
Yeah, and if we reduce that amount, that 10, with some ARPA money, once the select board has an opportunity to look at that, bringing that cost down is going to make it that much more affordable within the levy too. Hopefully we get some MassWorks grant. I think right now, from what we're looking at with the $40 million and 10 that could be our obligation, anything that we get that keeps lowering that with MassWorks grants and then ARPA funding and any other ARPA money that we can get, that's just going to make that that much more doable within the levy.
What about new growth? Have you looked at that at all for that area? New growth funding, some of the bond repayment?
Certainly it's something that could look at. I would, if this zoning goes through, I think that new growth will have a nice spike, especially with the 550 development and then the Northern Banks property. So it's certainly with the passage of the 2 zoning articles and this sewer article, new growth only is looking brighter. Without that, we're sitting with 42 acres of nothing going on over there at 550 King Street. That's not good.
Yeah, I understand.
Just like get on what Greg was just mentioning, and what you said, Anthony, about trying to pay it down as much as possible. I mean, that's a great idea. If the whole reason for this sewer is to upgrade the town common area, and we have the form-based coding in there, and people are going to upgrade their buildings, why not dedicate the new growth in that area to paying this?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it is a great idea.
I mean, I think we should commit to it more than just say, I don't want it to just be chatter. I think it absolutely should be a commitment.
No, absolutely.
And I think.
We also have to look at, Gary, not to interrupt you, I'm sorry if I did. I just want to, we also have to look at what's the impact of services to the town with the common being more built out. What does that mean? Remains to be seen, right? Does it affect public safety, the highway, but I agree with you.
But you can absorb some of those things into the operating budget if you're not sending it to debt service somewhere else.
Right.
So you decrease your debt service, you take that funding that would have been debt service, you put it to police or fire or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I know at the end of the day, you talk about 10% debt service. I'm not comfortable with that number. I know that number is one of those ones you don't want to go beyond. You start to tamper with your AAA rating potentially. But I'm not comfortable even being close to that. So that's just me. But I don't think this will happen based on the discussion today. But this is definitely one of those articles. I literally, as a board, we would wait as long as possible to really vote on, so we have as much data as possible before we're agreeing to this. So I think meeting this week, and I know Jerry and I are invited, but any other board members, if you're interested, I can get you on the invite as well.
Stephen, even to that too. So we have still 2 retail marijuana licenses, right? That's coming out. So last town meeting, we started the process of accepting the right Mass General law to be able to designate that fund to someplace else, whatever type of stabilization fund we want. And maybe that also helps, a sewer stabilization fund, and that pays down the debt too.
Yeah.
So that's something that certainly we're not looking at that as a windfall and build up, a town staff. We're looking at that as helping to make sure that we can pay the bills that are kind of becoming due. And the sewer is a big bill, and in the marijuana money, I'm sure those that were the first out, we're getting a nice chunk of dough, but as more and more shops open up, right, it's that money starts getting spread out all over the place. So we're not in for the big windfall, but certainly we're getting money that we don't expect, and putting that to uses would be something that we should talk about too.
Yeah, any kind of one-time funding. I mean,
Right.
if part of that licensing fee is a one-time fee and not something that's ongoing.
Right.
It needs to be dedicated, whether it's to this project, whether it's the senior center,
Right.
something like that, as long as it doesn't leak into the operating budget.
And that's, Stephen, that's why we started that process of accepting the Mass General law. So I would expect in the annual, we'll have some data. I think that the first facility is expected to open up after the first of the year at some point. So we'll have some revenue numbers that we'd be looking at, and then the board can at that point decide, where do we put that? Again, that's I consider that one-time revenue for that very reason, Steve, that you just said, looking at areas like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And I know you know that's fundamental stuff. So
absolutely. But you know what? It's good to keep talking about that, even from Fincom and the select board, because we all need to be reminded of that from time to time.
yeah. The other thing, and I know you know this, Anthony, too, is to be ready with how much we've already spent for this project, all the different articles over the years. What's that total dollar amount that's hanging out there? Because
Right.
people are going to ask that. So just be ready.
Yeah, and just what we're talking about here today, in theory on how we're going to pay some of this down potentially, I think should become more of a reality when we're talking to the townspeople, either before or during the meeting. If there's a plan to do this, I think it's much more palatable to people that are really on the fence with a huge number like that. So just something to think about, and I'll talk to Nick and his team as well when I see him, because I think that's part of it. I mean, you're going to get people that'll just vote for this because of what we want the center to do and how it's going to help our community, both commercial and also potentially add some housing options in other industry. But just the average person is going to really want as many answers as possible on ways that we can protect their taxes from going up beyond, what's already happening with our increased valuations and things like that.
Yeah, Gary, I think you're right on with that. I think this has to have a plan. If it can be funded inside the levy without any major tax hit to the taxpayer, I think it's got a much better chance of passing. I mean, that's what was sold to us from the get-go, that this was going to be user paid by the fees and everything else. And now it's become, well, no, we need all the taxpayers to contribute to this. That's a hard one to swallow. And I think if we can get back to where we originally were, and if this number comes in at 10 million or under, if we get grants and things like that, I think this has got a great chance of passing. Otherwise, if you're going to hit taxpayers with $300 a year and over 30 years, it's a lot of money.
Yeah,
So,
I don't think we're even talking about that right now, Greg, as far as, that without having any other user, certainly there was a concern, I think, that was raised by Steve in his role, for God's sake. So it was discussed, but where we now have that other user, and to need the type of flows that they need, just, it puts a smile on my face knowing that this, that this is much more of a reality than it was, 6 months ago when IBM was here, so losing them is to our benefit.
yeah, and I agree with you, Anthony. I mean, we need a written agreement to give us some assurance here that they're committed to the.
So they did
game.
forward. Yeah, they did forward a letter off to the to the general manager for the commissioners that they want in on this project. There's no question in their mind that they plan to be a user in the project. So that's up to the commissioners now to do what they have to do, and Nick can speak to that. This is his project, but yes, we've at least received the letter, which is more than we have had 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when we were talking about this.
Anthony, what happens to them if the sewer doesn't pass? What's their commitment on that?
That's a good question, Steve. I think that they have to look at, I don't know what I think that the plant there is only good for 40,000 gallons. So I don't know what that could be expanded to and what that dollar amount is for them, but certainly they're gonna have to look at refining their plan.
And Anthony, that would also limit what they could put in there.
That's right.
Enormous.
That's right. You know, if this is, you know, I look at this as these two articles are almost hand in hand.
Yeah.
You know, they need us as much as we need them, right? And it's a matter of now, once that gets passed, what's going to be palatable to the residents as far as what, you know, I know that the questions are being raised as far as density and all that, and we don't know, right? We don't have the answers because I think that they're still trying to work through, first of all, acquiring the property, purchasing the property, and then putting together their financial plan on what they're for their lenders. So certainly the importance of these two articles to each other and to both them and us, it's almost like tied to the hip.
At the beginning of the discussion, Anthony, I thought I heard you say that they were looking at 125,000 gallons a day.
Yeah, 120,000 gallons of flow per day.
So I'm looking at the article here, and it says we're building a 175,000 gallon system. Is it not big enough? Is this number going to go up?
So keep in mind, I don't know. I don't think the cost would go up because we have that conservative number. You know, things are changing every day with this, Steve. So maybe when this was created, it was 175, and I'm not sure with Nick if he upped it to 200,000 gallons per day. That's what I thought that he said. So you know, we could follow up with Nick to see if that 175,000 gallons is right, or if it's not. I don't have any answer to that right now.
Has there been any discussion? You know, we're talking about these two properties, which would definitely initially be involved with having to tie into this. What about some of these other properties in town that if they sell, is there any chance the town can mandate that they have to tie into this? You know, we're talking like when we look at like the Bank of America side over there, that building's just been sitting there vacant. What if that turns into, I don't know, something else? Is there a potential that we can mandate something like that? I know.
Yeah, and that's a question for Nick. I think that he'd be able to answer that question. I don't want to give an answer. I think I know the answer, but I'd rather have it come from Nick.
Okay.
But certainly like Northern Bank and their development, and I put some schematics up for the select board for backup for 25 with the rezoning of 25 Robinson Road. That development doesn't happen like that without connecting to the sewer. So they certainly, there's no plans right there. There's no on-site system. They're looking to connect as well, which is great. I don't know if the flows won't be to that level of 550 King Street, but any other flows that are needed are just gonna make that ratio in our favor, right?
Right. I just know that everything else, you know, some towns obviously don't create the optional tie-in, and they do the mandated tie-in, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure if commercial's automatic. I thought commercial was in, but I don't know. That's a question for Nick.
Right.
And Steve, remember that 175? I think our system, Steve, was what, 40,000 gallons, and we were at full capacity with our system. So even if they want 125, and us alone was 40, but we weren't using that. So you know, there's still, I think, room to do all the other stuff, but that's more of a question for Nick too.
Okay.
Wow.
So, Mr. Chair, it's pretty safe to say we're not taking any motions tonight. We probably won't vote this thing until we're on town meeting floor, right?
Yeah. When do we go to print, I guess is the question. And when is the select board making their finals on this?
Select board will be making, or the next opportunity to make recommendations will be on the 27th. We send it off to the printer on the 28th. I'm not sure what they'll do as far as any of the articles, if they'll be ready on the 27th. If not, then certainly we could put the supplemental sheet in there with the Fincom and select board's recommendations, or to Greg, what you just said, you can just wait for town meeting floor and do it there. But the 27th is the last date. 28th, we go to the printer.
We actually would meet on the 28th. Would be our next meeting. So that's,
Mr. Chair, if we're rushing to try to get this just for print and they don't have all the, I say they, the water department doesn't have their numbers finalized, it doesn't even make sense to try to vote this.
right. Regardless, we're probably going to meet on the 28th, Anthony. And this might have to be one of those on the floor where a lot more numbers and data will be in. Are you sure it's the 28th you're going to print? I thought it was a little later than that.
It could be, Gary. I thought it was the 28th, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't have that document in front of me.
But we can talk about that after. I just think it's important that we,
If we had more clearer numbers and we needed a day for the printer and did it on Wednesday, we probably could.
Yeah.
So.
And I don't know how much changes in 2 weeks, but
I don't know either. It's I guess we'll know more on Thursday morning we meeting.
Yep.
Yeah. So these are all great questions that I think, you and Jerry can bring up as far as some of the questions that Fincom has.
I think one more thing to add to this, Mr. Chair, Steve brought it up earlier, and I think it's a great point. There probably should be some validation of the numbers that Light and Water come up with for this project from the finance team, just to make sure that we got another set of eyes on them. It's a big number. Just want to make sure it's right.
I would like to bring Nick in on the 28th as well. So I'm going to request that.
Yeah, I talked to him today to see if he could try to get tonight, but he couldn't do it. So I'm sure he'd be happy to.
Right.
Yeah, we all got to be united on this thing if we're going to sell it, and if we're just relying on Light and Water's numbers without any validation, that could be problematic or seen as problematic, right? So the more we get involved, I think the better.
So Greg, what type of, obviously the tax impact piece and some scenario modeling there, but what other types of information do you think would be good for the Fincom to review? Because, we're still kind of going through this as well.
Sure. Yeah. From my perspective, and please anyone else weigh in as needed. I just think that we need to see what the impact is going to be to the taxpayer, if any. Now with this change, it might not be much. I think that's important to know and be very transparent about that. So we're not selling the town on something and then all of a sudden the tax bill, they get it and they've got sticker shock and everybody's knocking on your door. Yeah, I think we need to really know that and just have a final number. It always seems like these big projects, we never get the final number until we get to town meeting, and then we're kind of scrambling to make a decision. We just need a little time to digest this so that we can get behind it.
But one of the things from the original plan, this is the last go around with the different consultant that they were using. When I was going through those numbers, it's looking at what they're estimating for flows. I'd learned too much about this crap back then.
No pun intended, huh?
What they're looking for flows, what they're saying that the town is providing, the other people providing, and then how they put the betterment together, because this doesn't even talk about the betterment charge that's going to be hitting. The last go around, the last project that I saw, the town was on the hook between $2 and $3 million in just the betterment charge. And I haven't heard any discussion about what that charge is going to be for this project. It's not included in this 39. This is just construction. So you have hookup charges, you have betterment charges, you have the ongoing maintenance fees, you have what's going to cost us annually for the those that we do contribute to those things. Those are all the numbers, Sean, and Alicia, that I would expect you guys to be looking at and just put a different set of eyes on it. Someone who's not bought into the project or, totally in with all the nitty and gritty, and just bring these questions back to Nick Because, I mean, that's exactly what happened the last time. The things just got absurd in what they were doing. And it's money that, for the betterment, for example, we cannot borrow the betterment. We have to come up with cash for that betterment. So if it's still $2 to $3 million, we need to know that. And we need to know that at town meeting.
And I absolutely want to see this number tied to what it would be to a taxpayer, because I'm always curious about the worst case scenario, and that is the worst case scenario. And I know they don't like to show that because it could show a pretty nasty tax bill increase. But I think it's fair that the taxpayers know that, and then the rest of the way, whoever's giving the presentation to the town or whatever can talk them down from the cliff as they show them all the things why it shouldn't be that number.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Something like the betterment, Gary, that's
what-
no tax impact. That's
Yeah.
our ability to spend that money somewhere else. So
right.
what gets sacrificed to pay that?
Yeah, and Steve, and that's the internal discussion that Sean and Alicia and myself had, is with that ARPA money, right? If that's used to pay down our betterment, or whatever the financial is, let's not, two good things that we have now that we had 4 years ago. We have 550 King Street, and we have some ARPA money, and that's significant, right? $2 million, if that's what, out of a $3 million, and we use that other million or so to spread out and restore some of those missing or those eliminated operating costs that we had to make because of COVID. That's a good thing that we have now, right? That we didn't have 4 years ago. So I'm with you. Sean and Alicia, we talked the same thing. Like, what's our betterment cost? And even if we commit this ARPA money and it goes to our betterment, whatever that financial plan is, we're thinking on that same line, Steve, that you are.
Okay. All right. I'll shut up now.
That's a big
No,
one.
those are great points. These are great points.
And to be honest with you, Steve, I didn't bring it up because Anthony and I did talk about the betterment a little bit and the ARPA money and some of the possibilities there, but it just can't be speculation come town meeting.
Right.
That with the betterment for sure. We need to have that answer. So
No, you gotta say, here's all the costs that, as we know it today, this is what it's gonna cost the taxpayer, this is gonna cost us in cash coming out of whatever fund that we have now set up, which I don't think we do. These are the future revenue streams that we're gonna dedicate to this, that's gonna pay for these projects. This is how we're gonna get the town commitment down. I mean, that's all part of the plan that needs to be laid out. And maybe it's, Nick doing the project, but someone from the town or the selectman's office should stand up and talk about the impact to the taxpayer and to the town's portion of that project and how we're going to do that.
Great points.
a lot of money, a lot of time spent talking about it. So it's
Absolutely. I mean, this is the biggest nut that the town has had. I mean,
Yeah.
the high school was nowhere near this.
nothing that I ever recall to this, but it's a huge potential change to what Littleton looks like downtown if this happens.
Yeah.
Within a fairly quick amount of time, within a couple of years, we could start seeing a whole different town center. And I think for the better, if we follow our form-based code and things like that. But we got to get over this hump first. That's a lot of numbers. So
And
Thank
that's one of the things, and that point, Gary, that we need to remember is, we're going to hit every single one of those businesses along Great Road with a betterment fee
Yeah.
and a fee to hook up and the ongoing sewer charges that they're going to have. And then we're going to expect them to improve their properties too,
Yep.
to make this happen. But we need to be realistic in how many buildings along Great Road are actually going to be changed.
Right.
It's great to have that form-based code, but if they don't have the money to do something, they're not going to do it.
Right.
That's where you get them to sell the property and somebody else comes in and does it.
It's a good point though, Greg. Their property certainly becomes that much more valuable if their sewer's an option for somebody to tie in. I joke and say, the owners of Hudson Properties who owned 550 King Street, 5 years ago, if they were talking with us and they partnered with us, instead of selling that property for $25 million, it could have been worth much more, right? Because now the opportunities for redevelopment is much more than it is right now with the current system.
Yeah, and you have the ability to go vertical for sure, and you can do a lot more with a smaller piece of land. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and those folks that can't afford it, it might be a change, and we hope it's for the better, but some cases it might not be what everybody wants. That's why I think the more we can take away from putting it on the taxpayer, the better chance this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, we have 2 projects right now that are in the common with Northern Bank and 550. So that's a great start. That's a start that we didn't have, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, Steve, when we were talking about this, right? We were just, if you build it, they will come. Well, we have 2 pretty significant, one very, very significant partner and another development that's ready on right there. That's, on a site that's just a blight right now to the town. Certainly we have a lot more than we did.
Agreed. Yeah, it's very promising.
Yeah, it really is.
Thank you, Anthony, for the help with that. Good questions too.
I think also though we need to make sure it's reminded it's not, if we didn't do this, if town meeting didn't pass this, there's still going to be a huge expense to the town, the taxpayers, in order to be able to update the system just to service the town. So you're going to be spending a certain amount of money regardless.
Right, Jerry, exactly. And if that 550 King Street can't be redeveloped the way that they want to, or if it doesn't happen, we have a property that was assessed at $60 million, and what's going to be the new assessment on 2 vacant buildings?
Right.
I would assume that's going to go down. I'm going to assume that the tax shift is going to go more towards the residential. It's very, 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 very promising, as opposed to doing nothing, which is still going to cost us money, right? To Jerry's point, we still have to do a treatment plan. We still have to address lost revenue at 550 King Street. There's a lot of community. It's almost like, we joke, it's like pennies from heaven, right? Because people love, trying to get it, but this is just falling on us at this time. That somebody, IBM moves out, we already have somebody that wants to take that valuable piece of land and sees the promise in where it's proximity to 495 and sees the big picture. It's great. We could be sitting here trying to recruit a developer in here, and instead we have somebody. Now it's a matter of working with the developer, what the townspeople will accept at that location.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Press the flush button, go to the next article.
Like you're thinking, Greg.
Article 11 is the authorization to sell the parcel at U14-11 Shaker Lane. This is to remain open space area. They don't want it to be buildable area.
Yeah, so the resident wants to buy that parcel, and one of the things that we too don't want to, the select board doesn't want to see that be redeveloped. So when we go out to RFP for that property, that we'd be looking at some kind of restriction that would not allow any type of building and that be combined with any other lot or any other butter to build on that lot.
Why is this being presented to Fincom?
I'm not quite sure why.
I put this one only because I wanted you to be aware of it, and it was a sale, so I thought it was financially related. That's the only reason I put it on.
Okay.
There's no big windfall coming out of that sale.
No.
Is it at least when it goes out for a bid or however we're gonna handle it, is the minimum bid the assessed value right now? Is that gonna be part of it?
It makes sense for that to be part of the RFP, Steve, at the very minimum.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. You took my question there. How big is this lot? Do we know?
It's, it's large, it's bigger than what we can do under the small lot program. I don't remember, Greg, to be
It's not
honest.
very big.
Yeah, I guess, and to Steve's point, I mean, we ran against this a few years back where, the select board wanted to sell a parcel of land to an abutter, and it had a pretty high assessed value on it. So as long as we're covering that, that makes a lot of sense. And we've fully vetted this with all the boards. There's no strategic value here
Yeah, no.
to the town, meaning, see, we're selling off a town asset. There's no strategic value to holding on to this piece of land.
No, not that's been identified. Certainly we get no tax revenue out of it now, so if somebody buys it, it's increases, it creates some kind of tax.
Yeah, no, totally get that. No, I'm all for that if it has no value to the town and it's just a small piece of land that we're looking to sell. And as long as we get our assessed value out of it at a minimum, yeah, I'm good with it.
Yeah, and preserve open space, because I think that's one of the things that the select board is certainly cognizant of, is preserving open space when the opportunity comes. And if that means it's some kind of a restriction that we put it on it, then we're accomplishing two good things there.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
looking at the assessor's card right now. It's about 7,000 square feet and assessed value is $9,200.
All right, let's move on. I don't know. That's not going to do much for us, but
No,
We're having too much discussion already.
I thought you were going to go with 250,000. It's a full acre.
We can ask for that. You never know.
That's a real small piece of land.
The next article is 15 for funding collective bargaining agreements. It's just a placeholder to fund any collective bargaining agreements that may be settled prior to town meeting.
We just have one more, and I'm hoping to see if we can still continue to have conversations with that union and settle up with them. So that's why I had this article added, to not miss an opportunity.
And lastly is to review and approve your ATFC or your annual dues for your town finance committee of $180 for fiscal year 22.
We can't afford that.
Oh,
Override.
override.
I need to sign this one. Is that correct, Alicia?
I'm sorry, can you hear, Gary?
I need to sign this, correct?
Correct.
All right, that's. Any questions?
After that, thank you, Finance Committee. That's it for my director update.
Nice job.
Thank you.
So let's talk real quickly. Do we want to? I don't see a need to vote tonight on anything. If we are not voting on the big sewer projects, we can do all of our votes on the 28th. Or if necessary, if Anthony, that's not possible, we could probably meet jointly with the select board on the 27th and do it then if you truly are going to print on the 28th. And these same type of questions hopefully would be answered by then, or we won't be able to.
Yeah, we could have a follow-up conversation and double check that, Gary, with Joe, and I'm sure we can work something out so I'd love to see any recommendations that Fincom wants on the articles be included in the print document. So if there's a will, there's a way.
All right. All right, thank you, Alicia and Sean and Anthony and the board. let's move on to the next topic of discussion. All right, department liaison discussion. So, Anthony, you don't need to hang around. I think.
No, I was just gonna say, I think this is where I cut out. Thank you all. It was great seeing you. Welcome new members, some new faces and some old faces that we're very familiar with, and look forward to working with you during our capital process and the budget process. Hopefully we have a nice, robust conversation and come up with a plan that is a little bit better than it was in prior years. So that's our goal. So thank you for your time tonight, and I'll let you do the rest of your business. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you, Anthony.
Here, Anthony.
All right, so liaison discussion. We have, I had a few people respond, and we didn't have a full board last time either, but this is, Al, this is one of the things that we do as a committee. We have, each of us gets assigned a number of departments, and it's more just to meet with the department head and talk about their plans, their budget, any surprises, capital or operationally with, they're looking to hire. It's just so we can kind of get an idea, and then so when we come into our season, November, December, January, there's really no surprises. You've kind of reported back on the department heads on everything's kind of standard, or there's no big projects that we have to worry about, or a building didn't fall down. And plus it gives some of the smaller departments a chance to talk to Fincom members, get their thoughts. So I do want to go down these, and we'll see how we can assign, or if anybody wants to jump in. I did have, I know Tyler, he's not here tonight. He did want to have IT, just to let you know, and he'd welcome. He also said he would take anything else that we wanted to assign to him. But I wanted to start with a couple of with the police department, if anyone's interested on liaisoning with Chief Bernard and his budget.
Mr. Chair, who had that last year?
That was myself and Alan McCray, actually. That's the other thing, we can team up on all of these, especially the bigger ones. Obviously you will team up on the schools and things because we have liaisons and things like that. But
If I may recommend, maybe since you did it last year, you do it yourself and bring in a new member, someone who might not be as familiar with the process of the police budget.
Sure, I can do that. Anybody interested in joining me on the police budget?
Well, I'm a new member, so I can definitely help out on that one, and then maybe I can learn how this thing works.
Sure. All right, let's jump right into schools. So we do have two, obviously, school liaisons. So we'll count on you two for that. But if there's anyone else that's really interested in being part of that, let me know. There's nothing wrong with having another liaison. That's a huge part of our budget. And, making sure we have members meeting, not just at the school committee meetings all the time, but specifically when they're talking budget, that's when we should probably have an attendee at one of their meetings. And then off-site, we also meet with schools and the superintendent and the school committee chair and things, just to really iron out their budget so we have no surprises come January. So just to let you know, if anyone's interested, besides the two that already will be on that, Al and Tyler, obviously. Highway. So it's another good one.
I'd be interested in the highway. I don't think I did that one last year.
No, you didn't. It was me and Alan. Yeah, those three I just mentioned were myself and Alan. Just remember the schools kind of come with Neshoba Tech as well. Let's talk about, let's see, the finance director, the finance team, I guess we actually have a liaison with, but I'll probably take that. So we'll keep. Fire department's another substantial, one of our big four. If anyone's interested in learning the fire department budget, I'm working with our acting chief currently, Chief Clancy.
I did that last year. I don't have a problem taking it, Gary, if you want me to.
Okay.
And certainly welcome if anybody wants to join me. They're more than welcome to.
Gary, I'll do any of these. So whatever you need,
Okay, we'll
somebody
see.
to plug in.
We'll see what falls.
And I'm familiar with them all. So.
Thank you.
Finance, Steve?
Oh, you don't. I don't know if you want.
I was saving you, Sean, that one.
Yeah, no. I couldn't
I'll do
resist.
finance.
Liaison, a contractor.
I'm gonna mix in
I'd be
both.
happy to do finance.
You know what? I think I'm going to put you on that too. All right, let's
Gotta
see.
get you in the office more.
Yeah.
Steve, obviously the assessors. I'm going to have you go right down the line there. The tax collector, assessors, treasurer. Tyler wanted IT, so Tyler will have IT.
Can I do IT with Tyler?
Absolutely. Steve. Let's see. Park and Rec. It's an interesting one. Actually, I think I might want to. I haven't done Park and Rec before. I think it's one of those I wouldn't mind. So
I'll jump on there with you.
okay. I did want to bring up one that I mentioned earlier. Is anyone interested in doing the CP, the Community Preservation Committee? I'm not going to call it a high maintenance board, but it's one that does meet regularly, and they do make a lot of decisions on where money is going to be allocated in what buckets, right? The historical and the different pieces. So if anyone's interested in that, it's a pretty interesting board, a good group of people. And I know they've met a few times. They keep asking if I have an appointee yet, but I keep saying, no, we don't.
You know what days they meet of the week these days? You know, what day they meet?
I don't. Why would you be interested if it was something you could do?
If I can fit it into my bandwidth here, I've been on that board. I chaired that board from the inception of it. So I have a pretty good familiarity with how that.
All right, I'll check into it, Greg. We can.
Greg, they've been meeting Wednesdays, I think.
Wednesdays. Okay.
I don't know if that's their set date or if that's just the last two meetings we've had with them. So I think they were trying to, Alicia, were they trying to set a schedule for like one Wednesday a month or something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's Wednesdays, I probably can make that work at least through this year.
Okay.
I'm not traveling, so.
Thanks, Greg. Who likes the building department and planning? Anybody like that type of stuff? That be interested? All right, I can.
Great employees, but no interest. Been there and done that with at least with planning.
All right. Tyler's getting a lot of these that nobody volunteers. Conservation. No, I know some of these are small budgets that don't require a lot of maintenance, but I'm going to grab that one. Appeals board. This is who chairs that? Sherry Gould, I think, chairs that, right?
I can do that if you want.
Okay. Thank you, Jared. Let's see. We have EHS Council on Aging. I am on the Council on Aging. I guess I could.
Dual role there, Gary. You can cover both.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's not a problem. Unless somebody really wants to do it.
I'm not old enough.
Yeah, okay. Let's see. the town clerk's office, so that'd be Diane. Liaisoning with her and some of her budgets. Obviously, it's centered around a lot of the town meeting stuff and things like that. But
I can do that.
thanks. Might as well just stay in the building over there. That's
Yeah.
fine.
We got a space.
Veteran services. That's John Borowski. Another one of those smaller budgets. I might be able to do that one because but I don't know if there's a conflict of interest because I do utilize some of the services from that office. So, but I don't think it matters as long as I abstain from any voting on any of their budgets. So I can probably continue to do that one.
Yeah, you got to give Tom something too.
You know
don't
what? That's right. That's a good one for Tom. He's on it. Couple of the last ones here. Light and water, obviously. Jerry, Jerry, you had sent me another one. What else did you want? Do you remember?
No, I just said that, and anything else you wanted was fine.
Anyone else?
I would.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying I wouldn't mind joining Greg on either the fire or the
Okay.
other one that that's kind of big, just so I can learn it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whichever he feels he would rather have somebody with.
Either one or both if you want, Jerry. It's up to you.
Okay. I'll link the two of you up on a couple of those ones that you have. We have cemetery. That's TC Bailey up there. I'm going to give that to Tom, I think.
He's dying for that one.
We forgot about him. So the last two I have on here are library and historical society. So historical society is a very small budget. I think it's like 10,000. It's usually very small, but
I can do that if you want.
okay. And what about library? Obviously, big time going on with them right now, so a lot of changes. I might actually give that to Tyler. He said he wanted one of the bigger ones, even though it's not a huge budget, but it's. All right, I'll put together a list that we can kind of go over, and I'll send it out, and we can tweak it before our next meeting and just kind of. I don't think it's anything we have to vote on. This is more of an internal document. It's nothing that doctrinally drives this. Just helps us know, get familiar with the budget process of some of these departments. And sometimes it makes us a little bit more educated when talking to Alicia and Sean, so we know we understand the process a little better. And it's so.
So
all right.
we're thinking about planning these meetings like November timeframe. Usually do it after special.
Yeah.
We're trying to get
really whenever you want now. There's nothing wrong with reaching out. I know Alicia that has kind of put in a little bit different process this year as far as we're looking at 10 years. So that's now becomes part of our discussion, especially when we're talking about some of the larger projects like, Shaker Lane School perhaps, or some of these other things. And we know a light waters. Let's see.
Can you send out the contact people, their contact information to
Yeah,
us?
I'll send the sheet out to everybody. What it does, it just has the individual and their phone number and their email.
Perfect.
All right. I think we can move on. Do we have anyone hanging out there in the public that really wants to talk about money? Probably not. Alicia, nothing? Nobody out there?
Not that I'm seeing, nobody's hand is up.
Great. All right, we'll move on to our input. Let's go around if anybody has anything. Greg?
No, it's just, I feel like I've been disconnected the last couple months because we didn't have a meeting in July and I missed last month's meeting. So good to be back. Yeah.
Right. And I'll speak to that a little bit. I am looking at getting us back in 104. Probably, I'm not going to say this next meeting in September, but October, I'm going to actually see if I can get us into some situation where we can be there. Potentially hybrid. Hopefully, obviously, COVID is still an issue, but if we get into the budget season where I think we need to be, it's much better for us to meet in person, really. We can talk this a little bit more fluidly. So we'll play it by year, but I'm kind of targeting October, whether that's a hybrid type thing like the select board does or in person, depending on people's comfort levels. I will say that I did have, well, I'll bring up that when I talk. Let's go to Jerry.
Well, I just have a question really as a resident. So I know that the road that the Light and Water Department and Highway Department on is a state road, but who did the patching job on there? Was that them or us? And who's going to fix it? Because it's terrible. That's going to be horrible through winter if it doesn't get fixed.
You talking 2A all the way out towards air?
Yeah, that whole stretch is just, I've never driven over a worse paving job.
Anybody know?
It's state road.
It absolutely is a state road.
Yeah, but who did the patch though? Because were they part of the project with the water department when they put in those pipes?
Yeah. Yeah, I heard that they're gonna, the water department's gonna do Spec Pond Road, right? That they're gonna pave it next year.
Because that's our road. They have.
Because it's our road, but not 2A. Yeah, I don't know. That's a Mass Dot question.
Good question. I will bring it up.
Yeah, I can email Chris and ask him if he has any insight there because he has to probably drive down that every day.
Yeah. Well, I straddle the yellow line. Don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
Because nothing's coming towards you.
Yeah. Anything else, Jared?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Let's see. Steve.
Nothing really. It's good to be back. Trying to get right back into the swing of things. Been a while since I was on Fincom, but it was good. Good discussions and that's what I like to get more involvement by the finance committee. I want us to be a little bit more vocal than Fincom's been in previous years. I mean, we need to make sure that we're saying what we need to say and people are listening to us.
Great.
Yeah.
We like to hear your voice. So thank you. Al.
No, nothing here. It was 8 years ago I was on Fincom, so
Oh, okay. I didn't
Steve was working in town and Tyler was on Fincom back then too, but everybody else, I don't know anybody else. So but it's been a while and I'm back.
Well, thank you for coming back on. Volunteering. Awesome. I do have a few things I'll put out. I did attend the 9/11 remembrance at the fire station on Saturday. It was they did a really good job. I know it's available on TV, but great remembrance. They did a good job at the ceremony. When I at our Council on Aging meeting this week, we were presented by Anna Houston a presentation on the average median income. It was the best presentation that I've ever seen on that subject for the town of Littleton. And I told her that I want to get a hold of the presentation and I want her to present it to us. It's just when, and I don't know if I'll be able to get it in before town meeting or maybe one of the early October meeting if we've got everything voted on and we have a gap. But it was a fantastic presentation. I told her I was going to make it required reading of Fincom. Because we always talk about and we hear, everything's too expensive, taxes are going up, and this really showed group by group the percentage of people and what they make in the town of Littleton. She has all of that data, and it really shows what they can afford what everyone can afford and how out of balance a lot of our numbers are. So it's a really good presentation. It changed my thought process a little bit on a few things. So I think it'd be very valuable for our members to look at, because there is discussion of a subcommittee being created that's really going to start to manage some of these issues in town with affordable housing. We always talk affordable housing. What is that? We always say when a developer puts in affordable housing, it's not affordable. Well, this is showing how we can create it where it really is affordable, and some of the things that we would have to do as a community. So very interesting stuff. And I'm gonna share the presentation. And it's just PowerPoint slides, but it's a much better presentation with her actually talking through it and having questions answered. So that'll be on our radar, but I'll also share it with you.
Gary, what is the median household income in town here? Do you know?
So I think of individuals, it was a lot higher than I thought. It's like 80,000. And then dual, it was like 117, I think, for me, and that high end, the 117 and up, makes up a very large part of our town and our community. And then it talks about the middle and then the lower income, and the numbers are really out of whack. And when I say out of whack, we always talk about, well, can a fireman afford to live in Littleton? You remember when we were growing up, even if you were from town or in your other communities, you could probably be a fireman and live in Littleton, or a barber and live in your town, or a police teacher. It seemed like a lot more lived in town, right? Back in the day. It's not affordable to do that type of income right now with the type of housing we have and the skyrocketing prices. So this really talks about what it would take to get serious about this with serious zoning for targeting specific financial groups if we really wanted to have what the state considers a healthy, dynamic community of all three, or if you will, income levels, where we want to be able to provide for people that actually work in town. And I'm not going to leave the town offices out of this, because I think the same goes for a lot of our town employees. They can't afford to live necessarily in Littleton either. So just something to look at, and that way you can kind of come prepared with questions when we do have her present. It's a great presentation.
Does it break it down by age as well?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
part of it too. Yeah, it's amazing, Greg. It really was a great presentation. So.
And
That's good to know.
And Gary, when was and this was recently, so they have all the housing booms in it?
Yep, it was
Okay.
presented this week. And she updated it very recently. So I know it's available in our minutes, the video.
Okay.
Or everything else we talk about, it's like the middle of probably a good 20-minute, probably half hour of us asking questions because we're all so amazed. But initially we were really concerned about the senior population, but then it became apparent this affects a lot of other things in our community. So be looking for that to come out. Let's see, I wrote a few other things. Let's see. The talk meeting in person. There was a request of a change in schedule. And this was from Conservation, actually, is trying to move from the 1st and 3rd of the month to the 2nd and 4th, just like we do in 104. So there's a conflict in rooms coming up potentially like in November. So I was going to actually come to you, field whether you wanted to meet on the 1st and the 3rd, or we wanted to move our nights. The select board did not want us to do that, so they're going to handle it. I guess there's a reason why we meet right after the select board does, or the day after. So they wanted us to stay where we are. So I think that's where we're going to stay, and hopefully with the library coming online and police station opening back up, and some more use of the fire station, they'll be able to find a place, as they are going to be moving to the same night as us. Let's see. I did get a chance. I think might have been Fred Faulkner, our old member, that shared with me, just to let you know. Al, I don't know if you were given the ratings of best schools in Massachusetts. That came out. I think it comes out from Boston.com, yearly or biannually. Littleton's number 4. We're in a great group of communities for great school systems, and it's rated a whole bunch of different ways. So I will share that with you guys. I'll give you the link that I was given. Acton Boxborough is number 1. So, and then it was Wayland, Weston, Littleton, and then Dover Sherborne. So it's a great group of communities really to be in, because we've always looked at those communities having great school systems. So it's nice to be, and we've been on this list for a while, if I recall, at least in the top 10, but more so in the top 5 recently. Let's see. Yeah, everything else I really had to talk about was about the IBM, the tie-in, and the developer. It's been very, like Anthony had mentioned, and I'll reiterate it, fantastic with the town so far. We're being very proactive in what the town really wants. We're talking about potential for a senior housing, assisted living facility there, things like that. A lot of things are talking about tying into that. So just keep your ears open for how that might play itself out. That's really all I had. If anyone is interested, you can tell me now if you're interested in attending this discussion on Thursday. Jerry, I don't even know if you're available. It's kind of a weird time, wasn't it?
Yeah, I am shorthanded at work, but I said I would try to listen through the link, but
It's like 10 a.m.
yes.
Yeah, on Thursday. So I know it's a horrible time, but if you're interested, let me know and I'll get that link out to you if you just want to watch it.
Yeah. Gary, do you know if there are any MMA sponsored training seminars coming up in the near future? Usually they have some in the fall. I haven't heard of any.
I'm gonna let Alicia maybe answer that.
I think they do have some trainings coming up. I know they have one on home rule petition, I believe, this week on Friday. They have one coming. They do various trainings. So the 17th, yes, they have an MMA webinar on Friday for the home rule petition.
It'd just be good to send those out as they come up, Alicia,
Okay.
to the group, especially since we've got a lot of newer members.
Yeah, great point.
To try to jump on. Gary and I have attended a couple of them a few years back, and they are pretty valuable. And you get to connect with other towns and how they operate, and you have sidebar conversations and things like that. So,
Especially the annual finance.
yeah, the annual one's really good.
Great meetings. Sure. Yeah, COVID really knocked those.
Yeah, I know. But still, it's good to get those back on the radar, at least so we know they're out there.
Yes.
Thanks, Alicia.
Of course. I just sent it to Gary so he can forward it to the group.
When you get that stuff, Alicia, feel free to forward it to all of us. I don't hoard information. I try not to, but I understand the wanting to come through the chair. But that one, things like that, training opportunities, absolutely can be shared with everybody. Right, that's really all I have. Next meeting, we will go through the minutes. Marilyn did remind me, I forgot to put it on the agenda, so we'll have the minutes from our last meeting and then this one. Anything else anyone wants to bring? I know you've got 40 million things to think about between now and the next meeting, but that's all I have. This is a very long meeting for Fincom, so thank you for your time.
I think you're just dragging this out so you can get 2 hours in.
Going for the record.
Congratulations.
All right. All right, well, thank you guys, and I'm going to look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Moved and seconded. I'm going to ask individually, all those in favor, Jerry,
Aye.
Al,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Eve,
aye.
Jerry is an aye. That's it. Thank you guys. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Alicia, and have a great rest of the week.
Thank
Hi, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'll
Good
be
night.
by tomorrow, Alicia, to sign the documents.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.